and welcome back to Yoga with Rosie. So today it's going to be a little bit different. We're not doing a sequence. I'm actually going to show you 15 different poses where you can use the blocks to assist you to either make it easier or to kind of get a deeper stretch. So before I start, you can use this in 3 different heights. So you have the smaller height, the medium height, and the tallest height. So you can decide, depending on the pose and depending on the day, which height you would like to use for certain poses. I'm going to leave a timestamp here, all the poses that we're going to talk about today, along with the time on the video of where they are. So you can go ahead and click forwards and backwards and find the poses you want to learn about. So we're going to start off with tree pose. Now typically the tree pose, you would balance your foot either against your ankle, against your shin, or you'd bring it up to your inner thigh, a little bit wobbly. But with a block, you can do the same thing, but have a little bit more balance and be a little bit more stable. So I'm going to start off on the lowest setting and place that next to my right foot. So you keep your feet hips distance apart and start to move onto your right foot, and your left foot might start to lift. And you can place your left foot on the block, and this is tree pose using a block. Now you can also use the middle setting. Again, hands on hips to find your balance and slowly lift that foot up. And you can maybe even rest the heel of your foot against your leg for stability. You can also use the higher setting, but I think it's quite wobbly, so it might not be as sturdy. So maybe don't start with that one, but you can do that and rest your heel against your leg, and there you've got tree pose. Remember to keep your spine straight, your chest lifted, and your hip opening up to the side. Okay, so the next one is triangle pose. Now, triangle pose you get to from warrior 2. So you have your right knee above your right ankle, and you have a slight bend in your right foot, in your right leg. And your back leg is behind you and it's straight, and your back foot is parallel to the back of the mat. Your hips are open and your chest is open. You can keep your hands on your hips, or you can extend your arms out either side with your right hand in front of you and your left hand behind you. So to get into triangle pose, you straighten your front leg, lean forwards and hinge at the hips and start to bring your right hand down to the floor. Now I personally can't get all the way down there. I tend to crunch forwards. So for me, using a block is perfect for this pose. You can either make a fist, or you can put your hand on like this or like this, whatever feels most comfortable for you. I kind of do this. Find the position where it works best, and then you can start to open up your chest and your side body and extend your left arm up above you. And this is triangle pose with the block. And to get out of this, you can place your left hand back on your hip, look down to the floor, bend your right knee and push back up into warrior 2 position. Okay, so the next one I'm going to show you is half moon pose. Now for this one, I like to start with the block in my hand already. I just feel like it's a little bit easier. So we start in a warrior 2 position, again with that front leg bent and your hand on your hip. Bring your right hand out in front of you with the block at the level that you would like to use, and then start to bring that forward and place it down about 6 inches in front of your foot and also about 45 degrees to the side. Again, find the level that feels best for you. I always use the highest level. And then from there you can start to lift your back foot up off the ground, flex your foot, start to open your hip and your chest. You might wobble, and that's okay. Open your chest and your hip. And then you might even want to extend your left arm up above you. I'm going to slightly move that forward, and that feels better for me. So that is half moon pose with the block. Now to exit this pose, you might want to place your hand back on your hip, look back down to the floor, bend your right knee and step back gently into warrior 2 position again. Okay, so next up is pyramid pose. Now to get into pyramid pose, we start in warrior 1 position. So it's similar to warrior 2, where your right knee is above your right foot, your right ankle. Your back leg is straight, but this time your back foot is facing 45-degree angle forwards, and your hips are square facing forward to the front of the mat as well. So to get into pyramid pose, you straighten your front leg and start to hinge forwards at the hips. And this is typically where people go all the way down to the floor and curl their backs, which is not really what you want to be doing. You really want to try and use the blocks and have somewhat of a straight spine. If you can do that, looking forwards. Try not to lock your front leg. And this is pyramid pose using the blocks. Again, you can use different levels. I can't go that far down, but if you want to, you could do this, or you could do this. Obviously your front leg should be straight. That's too far for me, so I'm going to come back up again. But I just wanted to show you the variations. Okay, so next up is squat pose. Now we're going to get into this by starting in goddess pose. So have your feet separated a little bit with your feet pointing outwards. And slowly bend your knees until you come down into a squat. Now this is where you can use multiple blocks if you want to. You can stack 2 above each other. Maybe move your feet forwards a little bit. You can place your hands together at heart center and press your elbows into your knees and your knees into your elbows. And this is squat pose with the blocks. Now again, you can use different heights and different variations depending on your practice and your day and however you feel that day. This is just one of the options of using blocks. Now obviously here I've put 2 together. You can just use one on its own if that's accessible to you, if that's something you want to try. And that is the squat pose with the blocks. Okay, so now we're going to move into some seated poses on the floor. We're going to start with Dandasana. So for this one, you want to sit towards the back of your mat with your legs extended straight in front of you. And now this can be quite tricky. I particularly find this one hard. There's 2 ways you can do this pose. You can either place the blocks either side of your hips and use that to straighten your spine and your legs. The other option is to place a block under each knee and do it like that and just feel a little bit more support. So that's Dandasana using the blocks. Okay, so I've moved to a slight angle. I'm going to show you the next pose, which is called Janu Sirsasana. I hate saying that one. But for this one, you can place either 1 block or 2 blocks under your left knee. I'm showing you this side so you can see it easier. So you go from Dandasana. I'm going to show you on my left side so that you can see that properly. So you bend your knee and start to bring the sole of your left foot towards the inside of your right leg. You might want to wiggle around a little bit until you feel comfortable. And then you can place a block underneath your left leg here, underneath your left knee, just for some added support. You can place 1. Again, you can do different levels. You can do 2 if that's good for you. It's just nice to feel a bit of support under that leg there. So this is Janu Sirsasana with the blocks. Okay, so the next pose is lizard pose. Now for this one, you come kind of on your hands and knees into a tabletop position. You can bring your right leg up to the outside of your right hand. And typically this is where you would lower down. Now for me, I find this quite hard sometimes, so I really enjoy using a block or 2. And you can either place them under your hands like this, just so you have a little bit more height and a little bit more space, I guess. Again, you can use the different heights if you want to use the second one or even the third one. You can play about with this and do what feels good for you. If we go back to this height, you can also use the blocks to come down onto your elbows if the floor seems a little bit too far away. So I'm going to come actually onto the second level, and that feels good. But you can kind of play about with the different sizes here and the different heights and the different levels and do what feels good for you and your body on that day. But that's how you do lizard pose using the blocks. So the next one is pigeon pose. We're going to come up into a plank position. Bring your right knee to your right elbow and then place your leg on the floor so that your right knee is behind your right hand, your right ankle is somewhere behind your left hand, and you can start to lower down there. Now this is typically where people would lower down onto the elbows and even onto the floor. So there's a couple of ways you can use blocks here. You can either place the blocks in front of you, and then when you lower down onto your elbows, you can lower down onto there. Again, you can use the different levels if you want to go a little bit higher or a little bit lower. You can choose what feels best for you. The other way that you can use a block is to place it underneath your hip, just to have some added support there. I'm going to show you both sides so you can see exactly where the block is sitting, but it's sitting just underneath my right hip. And then we can use this one and come down onto there. So this is pigeon pose using 2 blocks. I'll show you on the other side as well so you get the full view. So the block comes just underneath my left thigh, my left buttock, under my left hip, somewhere in that region. And then again, I can come forwards using the other block. And that is Pigeon Pose using the blocks. Okay, so the next pose I want to show you is Bridge Pose. So for this one, we're going to come back onto our backs, lay down, and your feet are hips distance apart, just behind your buttocks there, just behind you. And you want to first of all make sure that your spine is neutral. So slightly lift up and then place down. And just spend a moment here. So your shoulders are relaxed and your arms are down by your sides. So usually for Bridge Pose, you would slowly lift up from the base of your spine and curl all the way up. So there's two ways to use blocks in this pose. You can either place a block between your legs, between your knees, and use that as guidance, so you can squeeze the block and keep your knees hip distance apart. So that's one way. The other way is to use a block underneath your sacrum as a support. I absolutely love doing this pose. I prefer this to regular bridge pose. So you slightly lift up and you can place a block underneath there. Again, you can use the different levels. You can use multiple blocks. You can do what feels good for you. So that's the lowest level. And then the medium level. And then of course you could also do the higher level. Just be careful with this because that can be quite a challenge using the highest level. You can also use two blocks. You can maybe have two blocks on the lowest level. That might feel good for you. And you can move them around as well and play with different areas depending on how high or low you want the blocks and where you want the support. But this is Bridge Pose using the blocks. So the next pose I want to show you is Baddha Konasana and Supta Konasana, which is essentially the same pose, either seated or laying down. So I'm going to show you Baddha Konasana to start with. So for this one, we sit with a nice straight spine and our feet come together in front of us and our knees are out to the sides. Now you can either stay here or you can introduce the blocks. So again, you can have them on the lower setting. That doesn't help me at all there because my knees don't touch. So I'm going to go up to the second setting. Or you can obviously go up to the higher setting and kind of have it at a bit of an angle. So it's angled against the yoga mat and it won't move. This feels so nice and supportive. This is such a nice way to do Baddha Konasana. And I'm also going to show you Supta Konasana, which is the same thing, laying down. So if you start off by laying down on the mat with your feet together, and then gently lower your knees down to the sides, and then you can place the blocks at whichever level feels best for you. For me, I'm going to go for the second level. And I can place my hands on my hips and just breathe and enjoy the pose. So this is Supta Konasana with the blocks. So the next one I'm going to show you is Fish Pose. Now for this one, I'm going to place the block on the mat where I'm going to lean back onto. I'm going to start off with one block on the lower setting and then just start to lower down so that your back is supported by the block and you can extend your legs out and have your arms by your side. And this is Fish Pose using a block. Okay, so the last two are sitting poses. So the first one is Hero's Pose. Now this is where you basically kneel. So you have your legs hips distance apart and you would kneel down with your feet flat on the floor. And this is Hero's Pose. Now I like to do this with a block or two actually. Place them under me like so. And then I can quite happily sit like this for a long period of time because there's no pressure then on my ankles and on my feet. And also on my knees, honestly, this is just quite a comfortable position now to sit in. So this is Hero's Pose using the blocks. Okay, so the last pose is sitting cross-legged. So if you find this uncomfortable and maybe sometimes hard on your knees and in terms of just kind of sitting in this position, you can place a block underneath you and this will elevate your hips and just allow you to maybe get into this position a little bit easier. Again, you can use two blocks, so you're a little bit higher. And this is a really nice position to sit for meditation. You might find this easier to sit for a long period of time. rather than sitting directly on the floor, you can sit on blocks instead. Okay, so that's it for this video. I really hope you found some kind of golden nuggets and some useful information here. If you enjoyed it, please make sure you subscribe for more videos. There's going to be new YouTube videos every single Monday, so make sure you subscribe, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comment section below anything you would like to see from me in the future. Bye!